Grave Faces, a section from Chapter 1, Bosnia. Ashman drove us towards the suburbs of Zagreb, and then out into the countryside. On one side of the road we came across hundreds of white tents marked UN and UNICEF in large black letters, and also what appeared to be a city of hurriedly assembled corrugated iron huts surrounded by barbed wire containing thousands of people. Ashman slowed as we passed by, his smile now gone. The largest refugee camp in Europe, mostly Bosnian Muslims. Bosniaks, he said. As we drove into southern Croatia, I began to notice the first real signs of the fighting. Burned out cars, buildings and houses with shell holes and pockmarked with hundreds of bullet holes, smoke-blackened window frames indicating explosions and subsequent fires. 2 hours later we came upon at first just a few, then hundreds of refugees silently walking in single file along the roadside with tired, gaunt, expressionless faces, pushing barrows full of belongings and in mini-tractors pulling trailers packed with small children and the elderly. I felt as if I were back in time watching the black and white footage of the Jews and other persecuted people tramping through Europe after the Second World War, trying to go home or to find a place of safety. A few expressionless people looked out at our white vehicle as it cruised past them. We slowed down again. I made eye contact with a gaunt, shabbily dressed man carrying a small child in his arms, who was looking at me directly. I nodded respectfully. I could see nothing but contempt on his face. I wondered what horrors he and his family had witnessed. I noticed that Bruce had slipped off his UN hat and wondered if he felt conscious that by wearing it we might cause offence. We stopped at a petrol station, badly pockmarked by mortar shells and bullets, where other UN vehicles and drivers had gathered to refuel. As I looked for the toilet, I noticed a sharpened wooden pole about 7 feet long with black and dark red stains on it sticking out of the ground at a slight angle. What looked like long since dried, congealed, blood-covered patches on the ground beside it. After refueling and buying some badly needed drinking water, we were on our way again. I casually asked Ashman if he knew what the pole was for. Vlad the Impaler, he said. When villages were ethnically cleansed of Muslims, the Serbs or the Croats made sure that if any of them wanted to stay, they might think again if they saw one of their neighbours impaled in the pole. They were impaled in a clever way, you know, dating back centuries, bypassing major organs. This meant it could take days for them to die, he explained. Jesus Christ, I exclaimed. No, he was crucified, not impaled, Bruce said, between humming quite loud an indeterminate classical tune. We passed more and more refugees and then dozens of cars, buses queuing nose to tail, full of mostly sleeping female passengers wearing headscarves. Eventually, we approached the wide and wild River Sava via newly established dirt road off the main road leading to the edge of the river border between Croatia and Bosnia. Ashman told us to put on our blue hats. I heard the clicks of the door's automatic locks being switched on as we drove past the waiting coaches and approached what appeared to be the deck of a very basic ferry. The hull was strapped together with huge logs on either side. We were guided into one of the last vehicle spaces by the ferryman, although it meant nudging some very disgruntled foot passengers who, if looks could kill, I thought. How come we didn't wait our turn behind the coaches? I asked Ashman. 3-day wait, he said dryly, shrugging his shoulders as if he had no alternative. I felt quite guilty about our queue jumping. The angry looks from the other travellers, who'd probably been waiting for days, seemed justified to me, coming from a culture in my own country of standing in line and taking my turn. as the ferry began its short journey across the river by way of pulleys from the other side, I realised why we had left the main road. I could see an almost destroyed vast modern bridge a few hundred yards upriver with concrete beams from which girders twisted up like outstretched fingers from fingerless glove, like a grotesque piece of sculpture towering over the fast-flowing swollen river. Bruce, against Ashman's advice, announced he wanted to get out of our vehicle. "The ferry seems a tad fragile to me," he said as it swayed in and out of the slight swell. I took his point, and I too climbed out. I didn't fancy being trapped in a locked car if the overloaded ferry were to take on water. When at last we had crossed the river, we climbed back into the vehicle as Ashman said, "We are now in Republika Srpska, Serb territory. Please don't leave the vehicle again until we arrive in Tuzla." The road on the other side was jammed with waiting traffic and many more refugees making their way into Croatia. Ashman suddenly veered off-road and sped through a field, then slipped back onto the main road ahead of the queues of refugees. "Maybe 2-3 hours to Tuzla, depending on roadblocks," he announced with a smile.